Hello, hello, hello. Hi, welcome. I am Sylvia Hayes, and you are watching Good News at Primetime. Today, our topic is: Are you your brother's keeper? Are you your brother's keeper? You know, a lot of times we turn our heads when we see things happen, saying, "It ain't my business." Even when you see somebody with a flat tire, it ain't my business. But then, too, I can understand with a flat tire, might be a stranger. You stop and help, you might end up dead because that has happened before. I can understand that. But there are times when we could step up to the place and say, "You need some help? Can I assist you?" Or here's a handout or something. Okay. So don't always just turn your head and say, "It ain't my business," because it is. God wants us to help everybody. Okay. So we can't just say, "It ain't my business." Because that's not cool. Because sometimes these people, they need help. Sometimes people want your help. But when you say, "It ain't my business," you're missing out on blessing somebody or missing out on getting a blessing. Okay? So are you your brother's keeper? Are you? When you see a child doing something wrong, do you correct that child or do you say, "It ain't my child," or "That child should know better"? Children don't know better. They do stuff and they don't even know. They don't even think. People do stuff without thinking. Grown people do stuff without thinking. Sometimes you don't even have to correct grown people because they do things sometimes without thinking. Okay? So don't just say, "It ain't my business." You are your brother's keeper. And I'm going to go ahead and bring on my co host, Mr. Reggie Drummond, so he can help me discuss this problem we have. Hey, Reggie, how are you doing today?
What's up there, Miss Sylvia, and what's up to the Good News at Primetime TV audience? I'm excited to be here. I hope everybody hits that like, share, subscribe button. You know, this is a powerful topic. This is something that touches us all. We say brother, but that's your neighbor. You know, what's the guy, Mr. Rogers? Wouldn't you like to be your neighbor? Take care of your neighbor. Uh,
Mm,
we have to be a little bit more proactive. We live in a time where people have gotten to the point where they don't come out the house, that much, see the neighbors. A lot of stuff is done online. You know, there are situations in neighborhoods where they'll tweet the neighbor about what's going on instead of coming out and looking around and seeing if they're okay. Which those are good, but it's something about interaction, door to door, talking to people, making conversation. The human element is gradually being removed. You know, people say, well, I did send him an email and I made him aware that it looked like he was troubled. You know, they do this in the church, the mosque, the temples, instead of being there where you face to face, you like grandmama, and not necessarily in your business. But
mm-hmm.
they in your business. They know how you look. They say, I looked at him. I know he wasn't doing well, wasn't feeling well. But now people observe people from a distance. I was just looking at the situation up in Maine where the guy came and killed, I think, 18 people.
Mm.
Even in his reserve unit, they say, they was afterwards, everybody comes forward and say, I knew he had some problems. His family made people aware, the police aware about his condition. You know, other people, they still don't know what's really happened, but as they put fragments of this thing together, uh, looked like most of the people he shot, he knew. Those were places that he went with his girlfriend or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So those folk knew him. They, sometimes we'll say, well, he just got out of a bad relationship. I don't want to get around him. I don't want to be around him. But not that you into people's business, but we got to be more aware of the trauma that people are going through, mental health, uh, suicide. All these things are always putting us in a position where somebody said, "Man, I wish I had said something."
Yeah, exactly. Quote, sometimes you see somebody in a position, you might say, I don't want to get involved, but if you do get involved, sometimes you can cool the fire, you know, and prevent people from doing stuff that they would have done. But you just got to get involved. Yeah. Um, you went mute.
Yes, yeah, yeah. We definitely have to be more involved. Um, you know, um, especially within families. Even though you
Hmm.
got more treatment, more facilities, there's so much that people don't recognize. And I'll just throw this out there. I was helping some people out at a church, and they were giving food out. Okay, the church was in a neighborhood, but the people in the church didn't know nobody in the neighborhood, and they had so much food, they was trying to figure out what to do with the food. Because they had all this food, and they was calling people from across town and different places, but nobody knew nobody that lived within 2 blocks of the church.
Mm.
Now, somebody got the bright idea to go out and go on the highways and byways and talk to some of the people that was in the community. A lot of those folk needed some food. They didn't know that the church in their neighborhood had the food. Now you say, well, somebody probably dropped the ball. Sister so and so, Deacon Bob said, well, I text everybody that's on our database, and I did go out and reach out to them on Facebook, but nobody bothered to walk around the neighborhood. Nobody even
Uh,
they didn't think about it. And they had what they call an outreach ministry. Now their outreach ministry went all the way to Africa and parts of China.
but not
So
right
they was
there at
looking
home.
out. Yeah, their local brothers and sisters, they were so close they couldn't even see them. They didn't know what was going on. They was locking their cars up because of gang violence, people breaking cars while they at church and prayer meetings and all this type of stuff. They was right there in the pit of hell, but they didn't know how to reach those people because those were those people. These were their neighbors. These were the people that they were really supposed to be looking after. But
Mm.
you know, they did start outreaching into the neighborhood, going into the neighborhood, talking to people, finding out what some of their needs were, and that's part of being our brother's keeper or being our neighbors. Being neighborly. Uh,
Hmm.
back in the day, um, people would bring you a housewarming if you moved into the neighborhood. Now, especially not all neighborhoods, but just say you moved into a neighborhood, people would say, "Oh, I'm so glad to see you." Yada yada yada. How you doing? Welcome to the neighborhood. Well, you don't get that in a lot of places now.
Nope, you know, and it's
Okay,
it's sad to
uh,
say that
you
I don't
know,
really know
people,
my neighbors. But during COVID, when
mm,
I got a couple of boxes of food, I had too much. I took it to my neighbors across the street and right beside me. Hey, would you like to have this? I gave them food, but if they were staring me in the
mm,
face, I wouldn't know them today. That's sad.
mm, yeah.
That's sad.
Well, that's not uncommon. That's not uncommon here in America, and everybody's doing the best job they can do. They's like, I didn't know they lived there. You know, you 2 doors down from it could be somebody great, or it could be a serial killer, or some type of other criminal. People say, I didn't know. I know they always had the lights on, and people notice different things, but you know, in a society where people are kind of like in the box, they don't see nothing on the left and nothing on the right. They just stay right there, and they don't get the news until somebody tells them. You know,
Yeah.
uh, and we got a lot of groups. Matter of fact, today you got more groups and organizations and nonprofits and all that than you ever had before. We got more groups, more churches, more temples, more mosques uh, than we ever had before. You know, but yet all those things mean nothing if the people don't get involved. Even in schools, there are people uh, that have schools. right in their backyards, and they never been to a game, or event, or activity at the school. Once their kids grow up and go, they don't do anything. I remember back in the day, our elementary school was right down the street. And a lot of those, uh, you know, like my grandma, some of my great aunts, they walk down to the school. They get some type of enjoyment from just seeing us, doing a school play. But now, you got so many other activities until
Yeah.
your neighbor can be forgotten. If your neighbor is not a person that's involved with a church, a temple, or mosque, or a school, or some type of outside activity, they just come home, go to work, come back home.
Yeah, that's kind of like the way I am. But you know what? I want to know my neighbors and stuff. So there's this app. It's called, I think, Next Door Neighbor, and I
Okay.
just joined it, and I'm discovering, people. Right. I just made a new friend last week, and she
Whoa. Okay.
2 minutes away from me. A
Wow.
neighbor 2 minutes away. So it's good to know who your neighbors are because you don't want to be in an area and not have any friends. And sometimes I kind
Mm,
of feel that way. I know
yeah.
a lot of people but just to have people to socialize with and say they're my friends. No, I don't really have that. I guess that they're not my enemies, but but
Well.
just to socialize, that's a different story. But the next door neighbor, you find out people ask simple things like how to get rid of rats in your house or something. Or I have this
Hmm.
bedroom suit I want to get rid of. Whoever wanted can come and get it. They place that on
Right.
that next door neighbor thing. So I mean, it's a good thing, a good way to get to know, and then it tells you about events and if something is happening, somebody breaking in cars or something like that, somebody will post it. I mean, there was one time I
Mm,
saw on there when they said something about police is up the street doing something. Do anybody know what's going on? You know, so
mm.
they'll keep you involved.
Well,
You
well,
know,
that's the example of technology. Take tonight. What? It's Halloween, right?
yes.
Okay. Some people don't even, back in the day, on my street, they knew everybody. I think it was 50 homes on my street, probably about at least 50 homes. Okay. So out of those
Uh-huh.
50 homes, you probably had, mm, because you had older people and some younger people. So you had maybe 25 kids that lived in that neighborhood. Okay, out of 50 homes,
Hmm.
about half of them had kids, or they had multiple. But today, just say with Halloween, man, people board up the house. They scared of people coming into the neighborhood. Because it's just on the street. Like on my street, we could have people 2 streets over and 2 streets on the other street, maybe a 4 block radius. So that means you're gonna have about 100 kids coming around saying trick or treat. Okay. Now it was a little
Hmm.
bit different then, but even the older people would say, "Hey, boy, pull your mask up. Who are you?" They at least, "Oh, you what's the name, son?" Or the parents would go out with the kids, and that was a way that people saw the faces of the kids. Plus, they had been seeing them at the schools too, and they saw the parents, so they knew who they were. So a lot of times now, people don't know who nobody is, so they lock the door. You know, uh, I had a lady; she put the candy at the end of the street, tied to the mailbox.
Really?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, she didn't want
And
to see no, kid.
another way to be a neighbor's keeper, a subtle way, is like when I was doing trick or treat way back when. Instead of getting a candy, I would give my kids apples. I'll buy a big old bag of these small apples and give them an apple instead of candy. And that's a subtle way of being your neighbor's keeper, giving them something healthy instead of that sugar. You
Oh
know,
yeah, well
you
yeah,
say
a,
that,
a, a
yeah.
lot of
And another
yeah,
way,
a lot of bad. Well, a lot of bad things happen. You know, and this was doing when I was doing the 70s. People were putting razor blades in apples. So
mm,
if you got an apple, they said cut the apple up so you can make sure, it's good. Uh, People
or you
doing
can
all
take
kind
it
of
to the
stuff. Well,
hospital and get it x-rayed.
right. Well,
That's
that's a
what
lot of work.
they take a lot of the
Yeah,
cancer and stuff and just get it x-rayed and make sure everything is okay.
yeah. But you know what again, you got people that had bad behavior. Okay. The more
Hmm.
bad behavior that you get out of people, the more they become less uh, you had some mean, not necessarily mean neighbors. It's always been an older guy or older couple didn't want people coming around the house, trick or treat, different things. They didn't want nobody cutting through the yard, running through the grass, and all this type stuff. But
Yeah.
they weren't vindictive type people. But when you start thinking about being your brother's keeper, your neighbor's keeper, uh, those families, those neighborhoods where people were more involved with each other. Those were stable neighborhoods that gave the young people an opportunity to come and just like when we went out trick or treating, we walk up. I forgot the guy, Mr. Hill. That was the guy next to us. We wouldn't just run through the bushes. We walk all the way out the driveway, down our little sidewalk, and walk up his sidewalk and knock on the door, and ask for some candy. Well, see, we had respect for everybody in the neighborhood. We became brothers, keepers, and neighbors to the older ones and everybody else. But see,
Hmm.
now because society is a lot different, society is more different than ever. You don't know who's in the house next to you, so it's harder to be a neighbor. It's not impossible. It's just like they use apps, they use different things to keep the people together in the neighborhood. you know,
Yeah.
and then they work with each other and they think about each other a lot more often. They do bake sales. Some neighborhoods they got cookie sales going on. Or the women have come together and they got candies and cakes because they got a vested interest because they got kids and grandkids right there in the neighborhood, so they want to make sure they're safe. Some people they just take care of those folk around their neighborhood, and that's a
Yeah.
good healthy neighborhood. That happens today. Matter of fact, there's some neighborhoods that's doing that right now on trick or treat. So a lot of people are their brothers and the neighbor's keeper.
Yeah, and then a lot of times there are people who are taking care of the elderly too. Because, like sometimes the elderly, they are at home and they can't mow the yard. If you see their yard messed up, go mow the yard for them. And there are people who say, well, I'm mowing my yard, I'm going to mow Miss Jones' yard too, to take care of her. And it's good for people to just go by and visit with Miss Jones, because if she's there by herself, you never know when she might not be able to get up and go to the door or cook her something to eat. So it's always good to check on the elderly, call them up and see how they are doing, and don't mistreat them because a lot of times people mistreat them. Kids sometimes even mistreat their parents. And that's sad
Right.
to say. I was watching the news today, and they got this man for mistreating his mother. So she hadn't been to the doctor in years, and everything was
Wow.
all messy and stuff, and they got him for abuse. But he said she didn't want
Mm.
to go to the doctor. She
Wow.
didn't want to go anywhere. She wants to be at home. So, but he didn't do a good job in keeping her up.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the thing.
Well, it can be a sad situation. Um, you know, and that's other family members. I've seen situations where you only had one family member there, and sometimes they get caught up into what they feel are the well wishes of that family member. But just say if you got extended family members, they come by and they stay involved, that moves and motivates a person to want to do a little bit more. So it's
Hmm.
important that all members of the family, we've done some things with dads on duty and moms on a mission that encourage people to call their family members. Okay, even if you don't do it, but twice a year, Christmas and Easter. Okay, just say, hey, how you doing? And then if you can come up with a system that's a little bit more frequent, then you're doing this once a month. And with the holidays, that's a good time to do it. You call them, see how they doing. I've lost a lot of family members over the last years, but we made it a habit, especially like within my mother. section, I would never be more than a month from talking to them. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I talk to my mom every week. My aunts, at least twice a month. You know, uh, my dad, every week, stuff like that. And extended siblings. And I try to at least call them on their birthday. Say, hey, how you doing? Happy birthday. But all
Mhm.
that's important because that builds relationship. And then if you build relationship with your family, it's a lot easier to build relationships with other people. Some people when they come to a new town, they immediately do some of the same things they were doing where they left. Just like uh, if they were at a church, the church said, well, we losing our brother drummer, but we got another church family where I'm at, where I'm going. So usually you go over there and you say, oh yeah, you from first whatever church. Come on in. Now I got a church home. If I was at school, I had kids in school. You go there and they say, "Oh man, we recommend you go to this school." People start sharing a lot of good information, so you feel
Mhm.
part of the community. Well, today a lot of people don't do that. They just up and leave a place. They don't know nobody, so it might be months and sometimes years before you know who your neighbor is. If you say, especially now since everybody's got a garage, they just drive in the garage and close it down.
Yeah.
And people say, yeah, I don't know who lived there. I knocked on the door, nobody ever come to the door. People do all that, but it takes a little bit of proactivity to be a better neighbor. Like you said, uh, I met some neighbors just from cutting another neighbor's yard. And check this out. This kind of interesting. A couple neighbors, uh, the yard had grown up, and code enforcement came by. And at first, they were just like this, watching. I wonder when he gonna cut his yard, because I had met those guys from just being in the neighborhood. And then just one morning decided to go over there and cut the grass. So I went over there and cut the grass. Well, you know, sometimes people need a little encouragement to be neighbors. Before I knew it, the other guy came and he started edging. And then the other neighbor came from down the street and he started blowing the grass, blowing all that stuff. Well,
Uh-huh.
sometimes people, and they don't care how old they are, they just need a little help to to extend the olive branch to people. And these guys had been in that neighborhood longer than me, but they just didn't know
Mhm.
how to reach out to their neighbor, you know.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, sometimes you catch people, just like I remember when my son, Chris was about 8, so he was the only child. Well, that's how I met a lot of neighbors, cause he was going around the neighborhood catching other little kids. So by the
Yeah.
time we did a neighborhood thing, um, I know him. Oh, I know him. Oh yeah, you Chris dad, yeah. They knew him before they knew me.
Yeah.
So
Same
sometimes
thing with my family. My children, if it
yeah,
wasn't for my
yeah.
children, I wouldn't know my neighbors.
So mm, it's important that you reach out, and then that helps them become more sociable.
Yeah.
Families that have uh, sequester their kids, that makes them not as sociable. Now, especially today, they not in there playing video games, all this stuff. The parents might not be there. Don't leave this house. Don't leave this house. So it's a lot of different rules now. So it encourages people to be kind of antisocial. It
Mhm.
just in the neighborhood. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And it pays to also just to call on your neighbors, like you said, or call your friends to check on them and see how they're doing, because sometimes they could be going through some rough things, some changes. And if you don't call and talk to them, you won't know. Sometimes people
Mm.
die and you don't even know they're dead. You know,
Oh yeah, yeah,
Look,
yeah.
2 or 3 years, you decide to call them up. Oh, he been dead for 3 years now. I'm going, what?
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
5 years. It took you that long to reach out to them, and they gone. And
yeah,
sometimes a person could be going through some stuff, and that phone call can keep them from committing suicide. Cause I know somebody
yeah,
like
yeah.
that. He said he had
Mm-hmm.
the bullet to his head, and he was ready to pull
Mm.
the trigger, and the phone rung,
Wow.
and that's what
Mm.
stopped him.
Yeah, a
That
phone
phone
call.
call stopped him from committing
Yeah.
suicide.
Well, a phone call can make a difference.
Yes. Yes, it
Even
can.
amongst strangers. Yeah, even
Mhm.
amongst strangers, um, there are people that say, you know what, man, I was on my way to might to do a crime, or they might be in a suicidal mindset, but because somebody waved at them, say, hey, how you doing? Have a nice day. A lot of these courtesies, even though they people tend not to do them, and it used to be in the South. That's why you came down south to get some Southern hospitality. Everybody waved at you. Hey, how you doing? You
Yeah.
pass a house, 10 people waved at you. They like, hey, how you doing? They just as friendly, all this stuff. But especially in a city like Atlanta, it can be difficult. People are like, man, they bring those, because they say, well, uh, they are afraid to open up to people because you don't want everybody in your business. You got nosy neighbors, but sometimes those nosy neighbors are good neighbors. Let you know if somebody, if you at a house, there was a lady, uh, they cleaned her house out. They said they pulled a moving truck up there and stole all her furniture, everything in the house. Now
What?
it took these. Oh yeah, you can't make this up. It took these folk a couple hours to clean that lady's house out, and her neighbors didn't even know it. They said the people that was stealing was waving at the neighbors. Hey, how you doing? And they
What?
thought that those folk. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. They thought that those folk were their neighbors. You see, that's why
Uh,
another it's good to socialize in your neighborhood. And I think neighborhoods are trying to open back up, especially after COVID. People became a little bit closer, but going outside of the neighborhood, outside
mhm.
of your neighborhood, it's uh, it's important. Another way of being your brother's keeper or neighbor is paying it forward. You know, I've had now I can't do it big time, but I had it happen to me. I was in a line getting something to eat at a store, at a what's that
Mhm.
fast food place, and I was getting ready to pay for the order. I had a matter of fact, I was on a low basic budget, so I got the what they call it, the combo thing. It was about five. This is before COVID. It's about $5, $5 or $6, something like that. Well, the guy in the car ahead of me had paid for the next three orders. He left $100 bill and say, and he told the person to take care of everybody's order until the 100 ran out. Okay, now
Mhm.
that was that was a way of, because when you can take care of somebody's bill or somebody's debt. I've been in a grocery store where somebody took care of somebody's grocery. That's just being neighborly. You don't know them. You don't. You're just doing something. Because see, people have to see some goodness going on. Like we bring good news. People have to see some type of goodness going on, and then that motivates them to want to do good. Just like when we cut that neighbor's yard. Instead of the guys just up there talking, man, his yard is high. I wonder where he gonna cut his grass. He must. He must. All this speculation. But when you reach out to people, it encourages other people to reach out to people too, and
Yeah.
and join in.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And another thing too, is like I know you know there's a lot of police brutality and all that kind of stuff. But if you see police doing something wrong, instead of just looking the video and report it. Don't just say I saw them doing this and that. Try to help that victim out. You know, because police could be wrong and they could be charged for it if they have the right witness. And sometimes people say it ain't my business. I'm not getting in that. Some
Right.
people say I'm not a snitch. But I've heard a
what
lot
they
of people
say,
say
what they say,
that's the younger generation. Snitches get
snitches get
stitches.
stitches.
Yes, but you know
Yeah,
what?
but
If somebody robbed my grandmother, okay, I would want somebody to tell me
oh
who
yeah.
robbed my grandmother. Don't tell me snitches get stitches. Tell me who robbed my
Mm,
grandmother. Because if something happened to your grandmother or your mom or your sister, you want to know who did it. So
right.
I don't like that. Sometimes you have to tell. I can understand sometimes you don't want to get involved, but then sometimes it's better to get involved, so
Mm,
they can, the way I look at it, if you don't want to do the time, don't do the crime.
mm, yeah.
That's the way
Yeah.
I see it. If you
Right.
don't
Yeah.
want to do the
Well.
crime, don't do the time. If you don't want me to tell on you, don't do anything wrong.
Mm,
Because I
well.
used to be a supervisor, and this girl, she
Mm-hmm.
was giving stuff away, and I reported it and had her taken away, right? And she came back to work, and she said, "Why did you tell on me?" I said, "Why were you stealing?"
Mm,
This
okay.
is my job, my place of employment. I'm supposed to be in part of security. If I'm a supervisor, you're supposed to, that's not your job to give away stuff and steal from the company. You shouldn't be doing that. See, I'm one of those honest people. I don't like theft. I do not like theft.
Okay.
No. So
Well.
it
Uh.
burns me up for people to do
Well.
something like that. So I'm getting it.
Well.
So
Uh. You look at people that work a job, work for a company. Uh. You know. Now. Some people call it the hookup. They say, "Oh man, you come on in, you get the hookup." Well,
mhm.
really, I saw a business closed down because people were stealing food. Now,
Yeah,
somebody should have said something a long time ago, because they just couldn't sustain themselves with all that stuff going out, all that inventory. So somebody has to let the owner know, because the owner at some point said, "Hey, I just can't take a loss like that." And then the neighborhood suffered. It was years. I'm talking about years before they put anything in that area. And that was a nice. It wasn't a McDonald's, but it was a mom and pop type uh, hamburger place. But they just couldn't, because people giving food away. Well, sometimes you got to let people know what's going on. When you see something wrong, it could be a school, it could be, and I know now with cameras and things like that, um, they we got the capability of monitoring a lot of things. Okay, but
mhm,
it still goes back to the human person, the regular Joe Blow, uh, Jane Doe, John Doe, just coming forward and saying something. I was listening to some of the guys that had been incarcerated, okay, and they said, you know what? If somebody had told, because most of the time you see people incarcerated, you say, man, they should know better. You stealing, you selling dope. But some guys never had nobody approach them and say, hey, that's wrong. I mean, this is some of the stuff they were doing. Gang banging. He said nobody ever came to me and said nothing. And I'm thinking, you mean to tell me, as a teenager, nobody? You don't have a grandmama, a granddaddy, a daddy, a uncle,
yep,
a daddy, a uncle, a cousin? Nobody? Nobody pointed out your wrong, your misdeed. And you know what? And that's not just with people that don't have nothing. Okay. It can also be true with people that are fluent, that's got money. They don't have a
mhm,
family member, or they don't understand how to be brother, you got means, but you become less of a human being. You become less caring. You become uh, a threat to the community where you could do more. You know, so
yep,
because I've had people. You say, well, man, this guy comes from a wealthy family. I know they taught them how to be decent human beings. Beings is no.
You
Nobody ever
can't
told me
always
I was
assume
wrong.
that. Yeah, you can't
No,
always
no,
assume
because
that they would talk because it's
yeah,
not
they got to
always
pass.
happening. Because I've had to
Yeah.
stand up. I've taken my kids to an event that was for kids. They had this gigantic thing full of candy, and there was this little boy there just stuffing his pockets with candy. Nobody there to say stop, but I did.
Right.
I didn't even know the boy who he
Okay.
was or nothing. But I stopped him and go, hey, that's enough.
Mm.
And my kids, of course, they were embarrassed. Mama, you don't do that. God, he don't need all that candy. So you
Oh
have
yeah.
to do it. I know one time I was in a grocery store. My son's a friend was working at this grocery store, and I came through his line, and he gonna give me something. I'm going, ring it up. You got to
Mm.
tell him, ring it up.
Oh
Because you
yes,
don't know. He
yes.
could have been being watched, and then he gonna lose his job. Then I'll go to jail for receiving theft, stolen goods.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not taking that chance. And I'm not gonna allow you to put yourself in that kind of position, not over me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you
Well.
have to stand up sometime and say,
Yeah.
no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
That's wrong. Even I know one
Mm-hmm.
time I was supervising, well, chaperoning a school dance one time. And there was this
Mm-hmm.
girl there, and she was doing all the nasty dances with the boys. I went back and
Oh.
told her mama,
Mm.
and then she said, why you tell my mama? I'm going, why you do it? You shouldn't
Mm.
have been doing it if you didn't want me to tell. Because I'm going to tell. Because
Okay.
if I
So
don't
you
tell
would
you,
you
you'll
would
be able to do it again. You know?
yeah, you wasn't
You know?
afraid. You wasn't afraid that stitches get stitches. Well, now think about this. Now, as an adult, okay, as an adult, and there was a guy. He actually spent jail time because now he's an adult, 20, maybe 25, 20, 26 years old. He's no longer a teenager. He's 25 years old. He's an adult. Okay. Now
Mm-hmm.
he bought some cigarettes for a teenager. Okay. Teenager was like 14 years old. Now, it just so happened that he went in the store, bought the cigarettes for this teenager. Well, the the police was there, and he was arrested for contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Okay, now this 25-year-old is still a young person, but he didn't think nothing of it. See, once you reach a certain age, you know, this is why parents are very important. All this stuff got to be taught. But just say, you know, a minor, there's certain things that they shouldn't have, but and they're laws that are in place. For somebody that said, well, what's wrong with me buying him a pack of cigarettes? Well, what's wrong with me getting him a 6 pack of beer? When I was uh, in high school, I always wanted somebody to go and get me a 6 pack of beer. Well, see,
Mm-hmm.
today you got to be an adult because you can be tried or charged with delinquency of minor. Like when you saw that girl, lewd behavior, you can get charged with condoning lewd behavior. Now, just say some guys or whatever, testosterone goes nuts, that girl gets attacked or raped. They say, well, the chaperone was right there, and she allowed this. So we have to become, and because laws are in place, and they're tighter now than ever before. You know, you can uh, you got to be better stewards. We all have to be better stewards, meaning that we got to look out for the young ones. We got to look at the older people. If you go into a situation, you see an older person, and you say, "Man, things just don't look right there." They just like that. There's another guy in Gwinnett. That's how they found out about his mother's uh, mistreatment. Somebody came by and noticed something, because um, and they spoke up. So we have to be conscious of our surroundings, and if we want better communities, sometimes you're going to speak up. It can be anywhere. It can be doctors. Doctors on doctors. It doesn't have to be a distance. If there are doctors reporting other doctors for prescribing medicine that they wouldn't take themselves for other people just so they can make some money.
Mm-hmm.
Now they have to be faced with malpractice, all this type of stuff. Police officers, they have to be conscious of misbehavior amongst their ranks. In the military, everywhere you go, we have to be better stewards of our relationships with each other. In the church, there are people in the churches, the temples, the mosques, all around. They have condoned bad behavior. You already know the bishop, the preacher, the pope, the deacon, the sister, uh, molesting kids. So you have to be your brother's keeper. You got to check them. You got to, you got to bring it to people's attention. You got to report it to the right authority. In some of these schools, some people, uh, they didn't commit the crime, but they didn't say nothing. So
Right.
by not saying nothing, they were associated with the individual that did the crime. There's a school where they had a pedophile there, and he had been there for 17 years. They when they busted this guy, they got the counselors, because the counselors were aware of some of what he had did, but they became buddy buddy. He was so high in the school system that they we condone his behavior. They already knew what he was doing to some of those young people. So the
Mm.
counselors, the principals, some of the teachers, they busted about 15 other people within that school for not saying nothing.
Yeah. And in the school system, you got to tell because you're running these people's lives. So
Oh
sometimes the
yeah.
things that happen in school, it damages people for life. Young people can
Hmm.
be damaged for life. And if you don't take care of it, you're part of the
Well,
problem.
the problem, well, all over there are systems. I was just watching in politics. We got these elections going on. There are
Mm,
politicians that know that other politicians stealing money, doing all kind of crazy stuff. Out in Texas, the guy demanded that the whole school board resign. Because not only were they taking money and condoning bad behavior with the taxpayers' money, taking these super trips, making sure that they using the credit cards, a whole lot of just negligent behavior. These full grown people in politics. So all around, part of being better stewards, our brother's keeper, better neighbors. You know, uh, we have to look at all around, and there are checks and balances that are being put in place. There are some that were
yeah.
already there. We already know right from wrong. Whatever the golden rule, do unto others as you will have others do unto you. What's that? The commandments. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt what is not
Thou
lie.
should not
Uh,
kill. Thou should not steal. Those
kill,
are the main
kill.
ones
We
right there.
all yeah, them the top 10.
Treat people the way
Don't
you want
don't
to be treated.
Yeah, don't go after another man's wife or husband or whatever.
Hmm.
All that stuff is outlined there, and people see it. People say, "Oh, I knew something was going on. I knew they were getting together. I didn't want to say nothing, but but people all around, uh, it can be interesting because most of us have let something go, okay, and
Yeah.
then you say to yourself a little bit later, "Man, I should have checked that." You know, I've seen stuff within my family circle. I said, "Man, I should have said something about that." It could be a subtle situation, and you know, uh, and sometimes you're not aware. But if you are aware, I hadn't had nothing super hard to tell somebody. I was, I did have a brother-in-law one time that was abusing one of my sister-in-laws. So
Mhm.
and I felt it, but I didn't know all the stuff I knew now, but we sitting down drinking, and I said, subject came up. I said, well, I said, man, well, you can't put hands on a lady. Okay, I think by saying that, I didn't address the situation directly, but by uh, putting my spin on it, men amongst men, you know, It was me, him, and about four other guys. And most of the guys said the same thing. Oh man, I don't care how messed up you are. You ain't got to put your hands on a woman. You can walk out the house. Well, that conversation moved and motivated him out of that particular relationship with my sister-in-law. You know,
Mm.
I don't know. I mean, I was younger then, so I don't know. But our conversation with him got him to thinking about being an abuser, even though I didn't know anything. I was like 26, 27 years old. I didn't know, you know, how to approach somebody that's, laying their hands on a lady. I knew how to break it up, but I
Yeah.
didn't know what to do if I didn't see it. And I just saw her with a swole lip, because, wasn't, you know, during that time period, there wasn't stuff out like now with domestic violence. It wasn't as aware. So,
Right.
but as a
Yeah,
just as a
everything was more
human
like hush
being,
hush behind the door
yeah,
thing.
right, yeah, but
Yeah.
as a human being, I was like, and the other guys were the same way, even though we drinking, some guys probably smoking a joint, but in our conversation, we became, uh, men that influenced that brother not to put his hands on a woman. Now it
Yeah.
probably say I don't know where that brother is now, but at least my sister, who she wasn't my sister-in-law then, but that was her boyfriend. But at least he didn't. That situation ended for her,
Yeah.
and I think it did enough where it might have helped him because so it's good to say something because sometimes people don't know,
Hmm.
they
Yeah.
not aware, you know uh their behavior. It's just like even when it comes down to what they call uh uh hate speech, or different comments to people, just like if I'm with somebody, got to be the person that sets the tempo. If I'm with some guys, you know I'm not going to just in my conversation most time, I'm not saying hard words like the B word and all this type of stuff. Okay. So
Hmm.
that sets a standard in your community of the people you hang around. That's part of being a good neighbor, your brother's keeper, because uh you respect the people in your surroundings. Just like racial uh comments, gender comments. I'm still about you know, being, you can't stop everything, but I'm not going to, allow, that to be my point of view or not say nothing. I said, well,
Right.
you might need to think about that, how you look at that. I don't,
Yeah.
you don't want to be the person that's, uh, helps put gas on the situation. He said, man, he was there. Drummer didn't say nothing. We talked about that lady all day. You know,
Uh-huh.
at
Yeah.
least I want to be the person that says, fellas, I can talk about something else. I don't agree with you on that. I want to be on the record of being on the right side of history in a way, and
Yeah.
you don't have no
Or
guilt.
say something
You
like,
don't feel
give them a little respect. You don't have to
right.
go
Yeah,
there.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't necessary. You didn't have to curse. I remember we it was somewhere, and this guy cursed this lady out. Man, he went off. And when it was, I think it was like a bowling alley. It was like a
Uh-huh.
pub, but a bowling alley in there. And he just cursed this girl out, just like now. You know, you have to say something. We drinking, but I've never been the type to use alcohol or anything as the excuse to have jacked up behavior. Well, we had to check him. I said, brother, you should, man, a decent lady, man. Uh, it ain't nothing that she did that deserved that. Okay. Now,
Mhm.
uh, but by putting that out, he did go back and apologize to her. Okay. Because and she was uh, a lady that said, well, I understand you've been drinking, yada yada yada. Because see, if he cursed her out, then he, the next thing would be a little more. You know what I'm saying? He raised the bar
Mm-hmm.
because he got away with that. Called her the B word, all kind of stuff, and he feel comfortable the next time. So, as a guy that was there, and I didn't know a lot of stuff now about domestic violence, all that stuff, but I knew enough from being around my mama. I
Mm-hmm.
looked at her, or said, "Hey, man, that ain't right, brother. I don't care how
Right.
much you've been drinking." you know. So
Yeah.
sometimes you've got to speak up and recognize situations and be the voice, the protector, the guardian for those people that can't protect themselves. You got,
Yeah.
it's like you ain't got to be a Superman or a Superwoman, but somebody got to stand in the gap and say, "Hey, man, I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
No, we're
Yeah.
not
You
gonna
got
break in that store." Yeah.
Yeah, cause sometimes if you just say one little cooling thing, it'll stop them or slow them up or something like that. And even when people are angry and want to take the gun out and go shoot somebody, say something.
Hmm. Right.
Because you might save their lives, might save the other person's life. You never can tell. You got to say something, and if you can't stop them and keep them from going over there, call and warn the other person, or call the police or something like that. You got to try to
Hmm.
try to stop it any way you can, because you are your brother's keeper. And who knows?
Yeah.
One person might go to shoot one person, shoot somebody else instead. You know,
Right. Right.
so you
Right.
never can
Well,
tell. You got
and
to
and
stop it.
and and even I was in a neighborhood, and I was out front cutting grass, and it was kind of got a little late, probably 6, 7 o'clock in the afternoon. It was kind of quiet. There was a little guy, probably about 14 years old. He had and I recognized it because I saw the orange tip. It was a pellet gun. But he had a pellet gun, and he was shooting up at the limbs and stuff. Okay, and this is a
Uh-huh.
14-year-old. Come to find out, he didn't. His dad wasn't there. None of that type of stuff. Anyway, I said, "Man, what are you doing?" "Oh, I'm just shooting up." I said, "Do you know that people see you out here doing that? They might assume that you shooting at them." I said, "Are you prepared to shoot a play gun and get shot at with a real gun?" Because there was a guy down the street that couldn't wait for nobody. I mean, he was waiting on somebody to act up in the neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
by knowing that guy and that guy's personality, if I hadn't approached that young man right then and there, I said, "Well, yeah," I said, "You might want to go in your backyard and shoot that." You know, I said, "Why walk down the street with all these young black males that's being shot and killed?" I had to tell him just like that. "And you walking around with a doggone rubber bullet gun and shooting up, and no, it looked just like a regular AK-47. It just had an orange tip, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and that's the only difference between that and a real gun." But nobody had never told him or approached him in a manner that you know made him think. And see, we have to approach a lot of people just not thinking. And even I had a young guy, you know, I was in Walmart, and I've done this maybe 2 or 3 times. Walmart and the airport. If these young guys running around with the little wheelchair, the
Uh-huh.
wheelchair for the disabled people, man, they were running
Uh-huh.
around doing wheelies in the Walmart.
Mm.
Yeah, this when Walmart was open 24 hours. Man,
Yeah.
they back there running them, and I said, "Man," I said, just imagine an old person is shopping and you can't stop because they almost hit me back there drag racing the little scooters,
Mm.
but
Yeah.
nobody told them, approached them. And I do believe that by saying something to them, that changed that. And there's many situations where you got to, they say, "Oh, okay, OG, Unc, I'm sorry." I said, "Man, goodness," because sometimes people not thinking, especially young people, and then older people not
Yeah.
thinking too. So we have to be a voice for the ignorant, the foolish, and the unwise.
Yeah, and we got to stop talking to the other people and talk to the person who's actually doing the problem, having the problem.
Approach
You
them.
know,
Yeah.
because
You know,
we'll see this child cutting up, and you'll talk to somebody else about the child instead of saying something to the
you're
parent.
pouring out. Yeah, you point out and pick and choose and tell all this stuff, but nobody gets into position to let them know because a lot of people times people don't know. If you
Yeah.
know better, you'll do better. You
And
know,
sometimes
in
parents
most
actually
cases.
need help with the children, because the
Oh
child will
yeah.
be cutting up and the parent don't know what to do. And sometimes if you step
Mm-hmm.
up, and help out, because I've seen times a child was crying and all that kind of stuff, and I stepped up and started talking to the child and they stopped crying, you know? So
Mm.
sometimes you need to step up and help. Because you can't
Oh
just look at
yeah.
it and say, she had to do better with that child. Well, she may not can
Mm.
do better, you know?
Right. Right. Yeah.
May
Help
not.
out. That well, all that's being part of being your brother's keeper or
Yes.
better neighbors. We have to have some degree of compassion, empathy for each other. They
Hmm.
don't, the neighborhood, what they say, it takes a village, and not just your neighborhood. That means everywhere you go, spreading just a little bit of love, a little bit of joy, a little bit of compassion. You don't have to be a superhero, but sometimes you got to let people know, and you don't have to just go off on them. A lot of my interaction with other people is somewhat subtle. I'll talk to them, at least slow them up a little bit. Now, I've been cursed out too, but most of the time, I hadn't had somebody, I've been blessed, but you got to pick and choose because you don't want to get hurt. But
Right.
sometimes you have to let people know that's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to. And sometimes, politicians, they do things and they think they're right too. You got to
Oh yeah,
tell them a few things too.
got to
Uh,
check
because
politicians,
I
preachers,
know,
teachers.
yeah, there have been a couple of times I get on the phone, tell so and so, you can't do this. This is wrong.
Right.
I've called them, may not have been able to talk to the politician himself, but the person who answered the phone said, I'll let them know. I'll let them know.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
going,
we
you
have
can't,
to call.
you can't do
That's
this.
accountability.
Yes.
We that's part of being your brother's keeper. Your accountability. I always think about that's in Genesis somewhere where I think Cain killed Abel or one of them, whatever it was. He said, "Are you your brother's keeper?" you know, uh, that's and that sets in our mind to take care of each other.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
Because if you don't take care of other people, who going to take care of you? Because everybody going to need some help every now and then. Everybody, you might not think so. You might think I'm a big, strong person and I don't need your
Right.
help and all of that. But one day you're gonna get in that position where somebody gonna have to speak up for you. So if you
Yeah.
see somebody who's more, the word is not dormant, but who's just laid back and won't say anything, you might need to speak up for them. Because everybody
Yeah.
don't have that courage to speak up for and take care of themselves. So sometimes
Yeah.
you might need to be that big brother, big sister, and be your brother's
Hmm.
keeper. Sometimes you have to do that. Yeah. So it's important that you do, always, your neighbors, your friends, everybody, just help out. Just help out. Politicians, they sometimes the politicians don't know. They think
Yeah.
they're doing the right thing, but then sometimes you might have to put the bug in their ear. Hey, this is happening right here, just like with that with the abortion thing. Some of
Mm.
these people they don't know. All these men who trying to control these women bodies, they don't know.
Yeah.
They don't
Hmm.
know what these women are going through. These women's lives are on the line, and they say we don't care about your life being on the line. You got to have this baby.
Hmm.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Right.
So their lives are not on the line. So they don't know. They don't know what it's like to be pregnant and go through this emotional stuff. They don't know. And a lot of these other people don't know. They don't understand. And they want people to go through this stuff. Got to speak up. Even with the racial stuff. The racial stuff, people be saying racial things and think it's funny. Uh-uh. You know it's not funny. You might need to say something. Hey, this is not cool. You don't say that kind of stuff. Watch your tone. Be proactive. Even with Indians, be proactive. Don't treat the Indians like this, or don't say this about them, or the the Iraqis or whoever. Sometimes you just got to speak up. If you see something wrong, they mistreating John because Sally Sue is acting up. You don't mistreat John because Sally Sue's acting up. No, you don't do that. So you have to speak up. You are your brother's keeper. And there's so much, so many times people, they even let children go hungry or bare feet. Parents ought to do this and that. What if the parents don't? You gonna make that child suffer? You are your brother's keeper. So don't make the child suffer. Don't let a woman stay in a position with no food or anything like that, and her husband's beating her up. Don't just sit there and say it ain't my business. You can say something to her, say something to him even in a subtle way where it's not to arouse, attention, get that extra attention to make her get in a worse predicament. You can say something nice to him. Say, hey, I don't know, say something. Say something that would cool him down and make him think twice about what he's doing. You got a nice lady here. You should treat her like a queen,
Right. And that's all it takes sometimes. Just something nice behavior is transferable, okay? And it's in all forms of life. Whether you up politicians all the way down to work, to neighborhoods, communities, anybody can be nice. Anybody can be just a decent human being, because in this circle of life, everything goes around. Sometimes you're up here and sometimes you're down there. I could be feeling down. One of your grandkids might say something and you get lifted up.
Right.
Well, that's part of this whole circle of being, when they learn early to have compassion. Grandpa, how you doing? You okay? When and see, that transfers all throughout their life. They become more compassionate. They're not goody people. They do stuff, but they got a more of a compassionate heart, more of a better spirit. I think that's what we need more now, and it's there. I don't think it gets documented as much. People paying it forward, people sharing good, like we bringing good news to people. It just got to be documented more, what people know exists.
Yeah, and that time is up. I ran out of time. Okay, what you want to say before we leave out of here? I see we
thumbs up. Make sure you like and share, and have a great evening.
Oh, okay. Oh, Brothers Keeper, tell us about your book. Yep, Brothers Keeper, tell us about your book.
Me. Find and focus, follow up and finish. Oh yeah, everybody should get a copy of that book. It can help you find a why and focus on it and follow up on it with a regular basis. It's always available, www.myheartshop.com/shop-1.
Yeah. And my book, Power Thoughts, Empowering You to Be Successful in Life. You want to get that book also? You can find it everywhere. Amazon, Lulu.com, Google. Get the book. Okay. It is inspiring. It will empower you to be a better person in life. Okay. This is the conclusion of our show, Good News at Prime Times. You are your brother's keeper. So remember that. Don't just turn your head and say, it's not my business. Be involved in people's lives. It can be subtle, but be involved. Don't let a person suffer when you can do something about it. Don't let a person take abuse when you can lighten the load. Don't let a child go bare feet when you can give them a pair of shoes. Or look, you can give them your kid's shoe. Give them some old shoes or something to keep them from being bare feet. Don't just turn your head and say it's not my business, okay? Sometimes you might say that parents can buy shoes. Parents might not be able to, okay? Grandmother might not have money to buy food. Grandmother might be too sick to cook something to eat. Go see about her. Go see about the old ladies and stuff. Your next door neighbor, you see their yard messed up, might not be able to, might not physically be able to, might not be financially able to do the things that needs to be done. Step up and do your part, okay? You are your brother's keeper. At all times, you are your brother's keeper. And that's going to be my power thought for the day. So y'all have a good day and we'll see you next time.